Welcome back to Shooting It Straight. I received just a little bit of, I guess you could call it pushback or questioning from a couple of viewers, not many, and most of them I think, were people that I know that contacted me on like that Facebook Messenger thing and all that. But anyway, I got a little bit of pushback on my correct pistol maintenance, that my video that I did a couple of months back on pistol maintenance, the long one, remember, didn't get many views at all, which surprised me. I thought that would get a lot of views, but apparently a lot of people think they know what they're doing. But anyway, in that video I stated that I did not lubricate my firearms because they don't require it. Now, I expected and anticipated some pushback before I even made that video, because I have also learned long ago that, most people don't really want the truth. They just want constant reassurance that what they believe is the truth. Whatever it is that they believe, they just want constant reassurance that that is the truth. Facts doesn't really matter. Now, I can understand that in this topic especially. Look, it's not easy for us to simply accept something that suddenly goes against what we've always been taught, right? My goal in this video is only to try to clarify this topic so that you can gain a better understanding of it, okay? So some of it may be a little bit repetitive. You may find that some of the things I talk about in this video are kind of repeating a few of the things I said in the previous original maintenance. I think it was entitled Gun Maintenance with a Chief Armorer or something like that. Now, it's important that you understand that I am not saying that you should not lubricate your pistol, or that you should stop lubricating it. Done the right way, a small amount of lubrication in certain areas will never harm your gun. Now, it may not benefit, but it won't harm it either, right? So, to lube it or not to lube it is entirely up to you. That's up to you. And there's no problem if you want to do that. I'm only providing factual information to you, nothing more. Alright. Now, I've already mentioned that I don't lubricate my firearms, and I haven't done so in right at 20 years. And I am not the only one. I do have a few friends that don't lubricate, never have. And I've worked with several veteran cops that never lubricated their guns either. And no one has ever encountered any problems at all because they didn't lubricate. Okay, that never caused any problems for any of us. So I'm here today to address what I think is probably the largest myth in the entire firearms industry today. The myth that pistols absolutely must have lubrication, otherwise they will disintegrate, seize up, blow up, turn to dust, melt, wear out, or any number of other equally absurd catastrophes. Look, that's all bullshit, all of it. Now, I'm fully aware of the fact that about 98% of people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. Because after all, we have had that drown your gun in oil or it won't work. We've had that mentality shoved down our throats for nearly 3 decades now, mainly by those that have financial ties to the gun oil industry and those that are still holding on to old traditional beliefs, which at one time may have been true, at one time decades ago, but no more, and I'll explain that. The thing is, no one has ever come forth with any evidence that such catastrophic destruction has ever happened to a pistol directly stemming from the absence of lubrication. Although I am continuously hearing folks on YouTube warning about your pistol wearing out, I have yet to see a worn out firearm. In fact, I can't even find a photograph of one. Now consider the fact that you can easily find dozens of YouTube videos today of people shooting revolvers, semi-autos, lever-action rifles, shotguns, that were all issued to armies anytime from the Civil War era to World War I, a time where there were no bore snakes, no CLPs, no routine maintenance. The guns were carried and used in harsh environments. They are well over 100 years old Milsurp firearms that still function perfectly today. Now, how can that be? In fact, a fully functional 8-shot black powder flintlock revolver made in 1597 by German gunsmith Hans Stoppler in Nuremberg is currently on display in a museum in Norway today. Now, somehow it hasn't disintegrated. Why is that? Well, it's because they don't wear out. In fact, C&' Arsenal has a video that shows 97 different firearms, most of which were used in military actions from the Civil War to World War I time period, all being fired multiple times. Why aren't those guns worn out? The fact is, quality pistols made with high-grade hardened steel components do not need lubrication, and they do not wear out as long as you keep them clean. This is not merely my opinion. It's a metallurgical engineering fact that has been backed up and repeated by at least 3 major U.S. firearms manufacturers and was taught in their individual factory armorers courses, at least the 3 that I'm familiar with. Now, fellas, you can disagree all you want with that, but somehow I'm not convinced that you know more than those guys. Additionally, I have empirical evidence to back this up. As I noted, I haven't lubricated a firearm, whether my own or any of those guns under my aegis during my tenure as chief armorer for my former law enforcement agency in the last 20 years. I have seen 0 issues from that. None. No dimensional changes in any components, no seizing up, no wearing out, no malfunctions. I've carried this XD45 service model 4-inch barrel every day for about 9 years. I've ran several thousands of rounds through it of every weight and type of ammo you can think of. Never once had a stoppage or a malfunction of any kind, even with my plus P carry loads. And never once has it ever had a single drop of lubrication anywhere on it. Every single component is still original, and nothing has ever worn down or worn out. Now, how is that possible? No lubrication ever, yet no malfunctions, no wear, no disintegration, nothing. What's your explanation for that? Well, the answer to that, damn, I keep hitting that table, sorry. The answer to that is simple. Modern high-quality pistols are manufactured to operate without the use of lubrication. Great advances has been made in metallurgy over the past 50 years or so. Now, there may have been some older pistols manufactured several decades ago that needed lubrication. But with today's advances in metallurgical engineering, coupled with ferritic nitrocarburizing procedures, that is no longer required. Alright, firearms today only require protection from corrosion. That's all. And a simple silicone gun wipe or gun cloth can provide that most adequately. Just keep the firearm clean and it will continue to function as designed. Nothing else is needed. Now, the notion that a pistol will wear out or that the components will wear down to the point of causing failures of some type, unless heavy doses of oil or other forms of lubrication is generously applied very often, is nothing short of ignorance. It's simply a marketing ploy. There's only one real reason for gun oil, and that is to protect the steel from corrosion. That's all it does. Fellas, we're speaking of semi-auto pistols here. Alright, we're not talking about industrial machinery. There's no part of a modern quality handgun that can ever create enough friction to wear out or wear the components to the point of ruin, with or without lubrication or oil. The load-bearing mating surfaces are far too light and far too smooth, and the cyclic rate of the components in relative motion to one another is far too low for any significant friction to be created. And friction is what causes wear. The only way to ever wear out a firearm is through gross abuse. Now, yeah, some parts may chip or break, and some of the springs may eventually lose compression. Shooting a gun that is heavily fouled is the only way you will ever wear out a handgun. The hardened steel mating components do not wear out, with or without oil, nor do they cut into each other. Any asperities created from the machining process are quickly smoothed out through the normal burnishing and marrying process of those two mating surfaces, so that the contacting surfaces are smooth, not jagged or rough. The steel used in firearms are subjected to a special hardening process known as ferritic nitrocarburizing. Now, that's actually the third step in the hardening process, and it's designed specifically to prevent wear and corrosion. Many people mistakenly believe that oil soaks into the pores of the steel to protect it and to add lubricity. Well, it does no such thing on a firearm. Because of the particular process that gun steel goes through, that steel doesn't have pores. It is instead made up of compressed crystals, and the ferritic nitrocarburizing treatment penetrates 2 to 4 microns into the steel by using an endothermic gas like ammonia to seal out all moisture and liquids. If it does that, then oil cannot get in there, right? In addition to bringing the steel to a level of 64 to 69 on the Rockwell scale of hardness. Now, a diamond is at 70 on that same scale. So oil does not penetrate. It simply runs off or migrates. Any oil remaining on the steel in close proximity to the barrel will quickly burn off anyway. Now, let's clear up another misconception. I'm sure you've seen dozens and dozens of gun cleaning videos already where the host is pointing out wear areas that need to be oiled, usually on the barrel hood, and the barrel towards the muzzle and all that. That is not wear. That is nothing more than the finish being rubbed down. It's just like holster wear. It is not wearing down the steel. It causes no dimensional changes in the least. Also, most people confuse burnishing areas by referring to them as wear marks. That's the bright areas, the lighter colored areas where the finish is rubbed off. You'll hear them say, well, any metal-to-metal contact points need to be lubricated. Well, why? Again, oil does not prevent wear on gun steel, since these hardened components do not wear anyway. Those bright marks they're pointing at are from burnishing and marrying, a natural process. That's what it's called in gunsmith language. That's just a normal thing. Alright, gun oil does not offer some sort of a magical buffer between contacting or mating steel surfaces, nor does it help to produce a hydroplaning effect between those surfaces. Alright, actually, because of the tight tolerances in most handguns today, you really don't want any grease or oil to interfere with those tight tolerances. Alright, pistols do not gall. They don't seize up without lubrication, nor do they wear out or malfunction without lubrication. Now, this may have been true at one point with some pistols manufactured several decades ago, before the manufacturing advances were made. But today, pistols only seize or malfunction or wear due to excessive fouling. Keep them clean and they will run just fine for generations to come. No lubrication needed. Now let me clarify just how running your pistol wet will ruin it. Oil is what retains fouling and debris in your pistol in the first place. You get external debris in your pistol from dust, dirt, lint, and so forth. We get internal fouling from simply shooting it, and that fouling consists of residues such as carbon, unburnt charged powders, primer compounds, and graphite, all of which are abrasive. That residue, bound by that oil and held in there, forms an abrasive paste or a sludge that acts like a lapping compound and eventually begins to cause gradual wear on the components of your gun if not soon removed. In an oil-free pistol or a dry pistol, much of that residue and debris is blown free from the pistol as you fire the shots. This is why cleaning the gun afterwards is so much easier and quicker. Now, there's an old story circulated years ago that a pistol seized up in the middle of a shooting match due to the lack of lubrication. According to the story, the shooter simply just dumped a bunch of oil on it, and then suddenly it began to function again, and he was back up in the race, right? Well, that was supposed to serve as some sort of proof that guns require oil or they'll seize up. Fellas, smoking crack does terrible things to the brain, alright? Pistols do not seize up due to a lack of oil. They seize up due to excessive fouling. Dumping oil in it simply loosened that fouling enough to free the built-up sludge or fouling that caused it to seize in the first place, just as any other liquid or fluid would have done. In this instance, the shooter could have just pissed in the gun and gotten the exact same results as the gun oil did. Alright, another myth. Gun oil does not help keep the components cool during firing, as many people think. They don't need to be kept cool in the first place. The only heat produced from a firearm is from the barrel, and that heat is contained to the barrel area. It would require much more heat than could ever be produced by a pistol to negatively affect any steel component. In fact, you wouldn't be able to even hold the pistol if it ever reached that level of hotness, and all of the oil would have vaporized long before that. Alright, now, tilt that fan over here a little bit more. Alright, now, and we're just about done. Let me speak about these experts, or those expert friends that several people seem to have. Now let's talk about my friend the machinist. Look, machinists have a hard job that most other people just can't do. and I highly admire them. But they have no knowledge of metallurgical engineering science. Now, they use lathes, milling machines, grinders, CNC machines, and so forth. Knowing how to fabricate metal is not metallurgical engineering science. All right? There's a difference, a big difference, as a matter of fact. Metallurgical engineering deals with the materials science and engineering that studies the physical and chemical behavior of metallic elements, their intermetallic compounds, and their mixtures or alloys. In short, metallurgy involves the science and technology of metals in the way that it is applied to the production of metals and the engineering of metal components that are used in products for both consumers and manufacturers, right? All right. Now, I've also had a few friends try to argue this, my point here, by using tribological principles. Except tribology is not applicable to firearms, and I'll tell you why. One branch of tribology is the study of friction, wear, and lubrication of interacting surfaces. All right, sounds a lot like the mechanics of a pistol, right? Except it's not at all relevant to a firearm. In this context, tribological studies deal only with large-scale industrial machinery that operate with heavy, load-bearing surfaces that generate sufficient friction, such as giant turbines, jet engines, massive windmills, things of that nature. This is the opposite of how a pistol operates. Thus, the principles of tribology do not apply. Now, the sole purpose of this particular tribological branch, and there are several different branches or fields of tribology, is to develop ways to raise production levels while cutting production costs through reducing wasted or lost energy. Tribologists have only recently begun to consider studying much smaller scale mechanisms in a field that they call nanotribology. All right? They've announced that so far, based on what they've seen so far, it appears that many of the principles applied to the larger scale studies that they've been doing may not apply to those on the nanoscale levels. So, in essence, to argue the issue by using tribology, or my machinist friend, is similar to saying that a pistol operates the same as an internal combustion automobile engine, which brings me to my final point. I suppose technically you can call it a rant. All right. More than a few times I have heard people on videos on YouTube insist that oiling pistols are mandatory, and then they follow that up with the imbecilic utterance of, well, you wouldn't drive your car without oil in it, would you? What a primordial troglodyte, you know? I mean, congratulations, man. You just won yourself an all-expenses-paid one-way trip to the beautiful island of Fucktardia, population U. Listen, fellas, the moving parts and operation of an internal combustion engine are nothing like that of a firearm, especially a pistol. IC engines are sealed. They have filters, internal oil baths, sealed bearings. They operate under a continuous dynamic load that produces enormous friction and heat that would instantly seize engine components without the continual circulation of surrounding coolant, air, and water, and without a constant supply of filtered circulating oil. Now explain to me just what part of that description fits a firearm. I'll wait. Alright, listen, fellas. As always, my intent with this video is simply to forward factual information that you would not have gotten from any other channel, and you know that. because they are either too afraid to put out this kind of information because it's not popular, or they simply don't know the facts. Now, but remember, lubricating your firearms is just fine. There's no problem in doing that, and I'm not telling you to stop. But you have to do it the right way, or it will become a problem, okay? So, thanks for watching, fellas. I'm Antonius. I hope I clarified this issue a little bit better. And, you know, even when under heavy criticism from the unqualified masses, I'm still shooting it straight. Ciao.